Kunos provided the preview to the beta early access version 0.3 of Assetto Corsa EVO, including the multiplayer preview to everybody, so I'm really not sure why I didn't do this preview to everyone, even though it was public. Kunos is touting a new physics model for this version that, going onwards, is going to take central stage. I have thoughts. Yes, I do understand that this is early access and things will change in the future, such as the nature of early access. Even if I don't think that these major changes will actually happen when the game is released, I think it will happen much more in the future, because I've been there, done that, and have the participation trophy to prove it. Let's start what I found good, the not so good then, and then what is, I think, terrible. Overall, I'm seeing improvements in things that matter, but in some other things I'm not seeing any improvements and I'm actually seeing a retrocess. But anyways, leave your comments below what you think about this if you try this out. Like the video and also leave a sub. I'm trying to get 100,000 subscribers. First of all, performance and graphics. This may not be the same for everyone, especially for those of you who are in VR. What I found is that now I have absolutely zero stutter at 1440p with mixed graphics settings, and I have consistent FPS with cars, even in multiplayer. Every session that I've had was great, with no issues or pop-ins or the regular weirdness that we've seen in the past for Assetto Corsa EVO. Optimization in FPS will, of course, depend per track. Spa-Francorchamps is, I think, the worst by some 20% in some cases, but even so, the consistency of FPS is much greater in single screen, which means that the optimization crew is doing their job, and I think it's going to the right places. I did have, though, a few odd crash to desktop issues after the end of sessions. I know that VR users and likely triple screen users will still be saying that the performance still needs to be improved. As the game goes forward, I can assume that the performance and optimization will get better for single screen, and then it will also go to triple screens in VR. But what I think and I feel is that since the start, it does feel like a different game in optimization. And I should mention that the load times that feel to me are faster as well. And this would be replays or new sessions. It takes just a few seconds, a little more on multiplayer when it's loading the assets. The graphics are another thing that I think they're improved, and this was also done in conjunction with the optimization, and now we can also see that, at least in my opinion, we have better illumination, color consistency in 0.3. It still needs better clarity at distance with the DLSS, and as mentioned, the performance feels much better. Native quality and the LLA performance have increased incredibly to the point I'm considering going to it and skipping super sampling altogether, well, except for the LLA, of course. It is that much better. I keep consistent over 100 FPS. Now going for the graphics, the colors seem to have changed a bit with the new global illumination. There's still a weird tint around somewhat, but it's so much closer to Assetto Corsa natural graphics filter that I often use. And because of it, I still wish there was a better way to control the brightness and the saturation and contrast, and especially highlights separately in each specific post-processing filter and doing it to my taste. This is, for me, something that is missing in Assetto Corsa EVO and made Assetto Corsa a little bit more fun, to make it personal. And this new global illumination, while better, it's still giving a plastic feeling to everything. It could be the track, it could be the cars, but it does seem to be going to the right place. In my opinion, in my experience, the performance in 0.3, I think this is the place where Assetto Corsa EVO did the hugest jump. Now let's start talking about physics. I want to preface this by saying that I do understand that EVO is an alpha or early access and it's a work in progress and things will change. 0.3 comes with a new physics system for dampers and suspension that will serve as a structure for future improvements. This supposedly will go hand in hand with the new force feedback system. But I don't think it can be just me, but I find the current state of physics incredibly generic, with most road cars even more so. A big addition to the content, I think the most important addition to the content especially because of the context of sim racing, will be the BMW M4 GT3. And this car has a combination of factors that, when compared with some other sims that model the same car, it suffers some issues, and the comparison is actually one of them. GT3s are really important in sim racing because everybody plays them, and having something that is GT3 and EVO is important because, you know, in the future, if there's GT3s, it probably be more important. So what I felt about this car is that I think the EVO's BMW GT3 is in some ways similar to the ACC BMW GT3, with the exception of the suspension now being a little less hectic, but also with what the tires do. What I'm feeling, and it might be placebo or anything, is that I feel that the tires in ACC, in LMU, and probably even iRacing, I think they are more reactive to input. I think this is related to the tire at least. I feel that there's a lot of slop, a slow compliance, almost like the tire was made of putty that gives an input lag of sorts to the input of this car, and also not just this car, to other cars as well, but because GT3s are more important, I think it should be mentioned here as well. Add that sort of putty, laggy input to the naturally dampened force feedback it makes. I think it just makes the BMW GT3 feel incredibly generic. In general, the tires feel like this in most cars in Assetto Corsa EVO. They lack the eagerness to stay on top of reactions and change their state or change their movement. And it feels for me that it's kind of like there's this bit of a slog between states of the tire, if it's gripping or turning or something like that. EVO didn't feel like this in prior updates, at least I don't remember it like this, so I think this might be related to the new heating model, probably with this new suspension as well. Realistic or not, I don't know, I'm just saying what I'm feeling, and it's likely going to change, but strangely enough, it's not the case with some cars at the same level. For example, with two other race cars, with the Cayman GT4, actually it felt incredibly natural to drive, or with the MX-5, I know that's going to be a different tire, but it felt still amazing. So it's likely some cars work better with this model, and some other cars require more input changes or changes in the model to make it work better. Which drops me to the force feedback. I know a lot of Assetto Corsa drivers, if they didn't like it before, I don't think they're going to like it now. With road cars, I think this is a little more difficult to predict what they're doing at the moment, even if it's workable. I think it feels empty and soulless. You can add effects if you want, but there's still some tire connection feeling missing. Maybe there's too much emphasis on the steering rack feel. Maybe there's some polishing to be done between how the systems communicate. It is passable, it works, but I think they have done better in the past. While I do understand that the Assetto Corsa has a lot of physics and graphical limitations, like I have mentioned in a video done months ago, I think the overemphasis in new physics systems in sim racing titles ends up being a detriment to development of new sim racing titles, because a lot of effort is being put into these new systems that are top of the range, you know, new and improved, and then whatever is new and shiny may end up not be significantly better whatever was legacy, especially when what is new and shiny seems to be a huge tax to implement and it's rather complicated. That's my opinion. But anyways, let's talk about multiplayer. There's two parts of the multiplayer, at least I'm separating it in two parts. One that is user interface related, and the other one, it is multiplayer related. With the multiplayer part, I think it was actually decent for the first try. We had stable servers, decent ping, actually a really good decent ping that worked well with the cars at hand. It had a good frequency response, so you'd do something and you would see it in the server, and likewise the same people in front of you. We had actually okay contacts between cars. It was fun, even if the choice was kind of limited, and, you know, everything was actually working correctly for something that was, you know, their first try for this game. There's still work to be done in the racing rules. Hopefully they can make the race rule set for each different class, standing starts for some cars, rolling starts for others, especially GT3s, or if hypers come, you know, blue flags, all of that. DQs, but as the skeleton, the multiplayer servers actually work quite decently. They're stable, they're good to go. The multiplayer costs, though, whenever this new portal comes in, it's going to be a little bit of a hard sales if there aren't any third-party options available, because that will increase the cost for a lot of communities from 2x to 5x, as I've seen in some cases. So huge issue for communities, but that's an issue for maybe in 2 updates. Now, I talked about the multiplayer part of multiplayer, but there's the user interface part of multiplayer, and well, that is just... it's just the user interface of Assetto Corsa EVO generally, because the user interface is terrible in all counts and it continues to be bad. For the multiplayer part specifically, what we have is a simple browser, as we should, with simple things, but still lacks an important option of filtering empty and or full servers. I mean, come on, multiplayer filtering examples have been here since the 90s. I was there, I've used it. And this was available in Quakes, in Unreal Tournaments, Counter-Strike 1.5, 1.6, Source, Go, whatever, and everything done by Valve. It's not like it's a new thing. It's been there. You can just look at it. Oh, it works like this, and we'll implement it. Even if you do the Valve thing and copy their browser, it will be totally fine. It's also not a new thing that I keep complaining about user interface, because it's, in all accounts, terrible. It tries to be minimalistic, and it just fails at it massively. And there's especially this one with controls. Who had the brilliant idea of separating options per input? Post the option, separate at most by system, and let me press the button or access to activate the option and basically assign it. That's it. You don't need to do any rocket science. Don't go through this, through select input at the top, select the option, and then press the input. I have so many input sources, it becomes a real pain in the ass finding each option, especially when Fanatec has 2 with the same name. Assetto Corsa Competizione and Assetto Corsa, even with the original launcher, did this perfectly, and it was super simple. I don't understand this. All around, the user interface is tragically bad. It really needs to go back to the drawing board. LMU did it, ACC did it in actually surprisingly good ways. It didn't look good, but it worked really simply, so more attention needs to be given to this. Just copy what you've done before. It is cumbersome to navigate, and it just doesn't look good for something that tries, at least superficially, to try to be minimalistic. Okay, sorry about the rant of user interface. It just gets to my nerve because that's the way that you're going to be using a lot of the sim. But for me, 0.3 actually feels like EVO's actual start, or at least the first update that feels like something with substance, even if it's unpolished and I don't like a few things and the physics force feedback feel kind of meh at the moment. It feels like something that was done, and it was not just, you know, half-assed. It feels like a proper effort this time, but let me know what you think.